Hello and welcome to Sincerely Elvis Presley. I'm Sean. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I was thinking to myself the other day, in the year and a half-ish that I've been doing this channel, I've never done any kind of ranking video. Not that it's compulsory, the YouTube 101. If you've got a YouTube channel, you have to do a ranking video. Not at all. You don't, obviously. But, I think they're kind of nice. I do like to see other channels and pull out things and decide which they think's best and which they think's not quite as good and what have you. Now, there are quite a lot of things in Elvis's career, his studio albums, singles, whatever it might be, that I might find quite tricky to decide what I think's best and what I think's, not as good. But I kind of thought actually a good area to look at for me would be Elvis's movie soundtracks. And when I started thinking along those lines, I thought, well, okay, I've got to set myself some parameters here. So first and foremost, I'm only going to look at ones that there was a soundtrack release for. So it had to have a soundtrack album or an EP somewhere in the world. Because otherwise, you'd end up with something like Charo that got one track in it, but it's a great track, so it'd end up really high because 100% of the music in Charo is fantastic, but that doesn't really work, does it? Because it's not really, you couldn't really call it a soundtrack. Another criteria I set myself was to ignore bonus tracks, completely discount them. It has to be. So what we're talking about the music from the movies, but out of the context of the movies as a standalone music release. But ignore bonus songs, because if you include bonus songs, Clambake going to end up really high because it's got some fantastic bonus songs and it kicks off with Guitar Man for a start. So it has to have a soundtrack release, be it a EP or an LP. Ignore the bonus songs, and unfortunately, tickle me, the songs have to have been recorded for that movie. So Tickle Me's out because it was old material that was reused. So I think when you start whittling them down under that criteria, out of the 31 scripted Elvis movies, I've got 23 to choose from. So we lose Tickle Me, Wild in the Country, Stay Away Joe, Change of Habit, Trouble with Girls, Charo, Live a Little, Love a Little, and Flaming Star, because none of those had their own specific soundtrack release. And in the case of Tickle Me, it didn't have music that was recorded specifically for that movie. So we start with 23 as our base. And I'm going to start with number 23, what I think is the weakest. And notice I say weakest. I'm not going to say poor. None of these soundtracks are poor. By and large, Elvis movies, even the title track usually pulled it out the bag. The title track was usually good, whatever else was on the soundtrack. But there's always some gems in there. Elvis, despite sometimes having weaker material, he had this ability to create gold out of nothing, which is one of the most endearing things about him. That voice and the way he could project, the way he could get inside a song, he could even make the weakest of material enjoyable. But some of the stuff in the soundtracks wasn't great, let's face it, was it? So I'm going to talk about the weakest to the strongest, but none of them are poor. Let's get that out of the way. But my weakest soundtrack of all Elvis movies, Frankie and Johnny. Now, this won't come as a tremendous surprise to anyone that saw the little series I did on the 60s, but for me, this is the weakest soundtrack of the bunch, simply because I think it's got more weak tracks than any of the others. Frankie and Johnny, great title track. Come Along, okay. Right, strong tracks. Please Don't Stop Loving Me, Hard Luck, Shout It Out's not too bad, Beginner's Luck. What Every Woman Lives For doesn't really translate into today's world, does it? But it's not a terrible song. But for me, yeah, I'm going to say Come Along isn't that good, actually. Petunia the Gardener's Daughter is a disaster, whichever way you cut it. I don't think Chessay works very well. I think Look Out Broadway, you know, I think I said it before, Down by the Riverside When the Saints Go Marching In. I've got a soft spot for that because it was on a Camden, but Everybody Come Aboard. I just think there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think half the album is pretty darn weak, really. And Elvis does his best with it, but for me, I don't know if it's that, because they try and give it, you know, a lot of it's got a sort of riverboat, vaudeville sort of feel to it, things like Look Out Broadway and what have you, and the other voices in it as well. I mean, they grated on me even when I was a kid. So unfortunately, 1966, Frankie and Johnny comes in at number 23 as the worst Elvis soundtrack in my opinion. Number 23. Following hot on its heels from the same year, 1966, Paradise Hawaiian Style. And it's funny really, because I hadn't thought about this, but the two I've put at the bottom are the two where they messed around with the sleeves, and in that case, you know, stuck a different Elvis's head on his body because they didn't think he looked too, you know, fit at the time. And exactly the same happened with Paradise Hawaiian Style, and they took a Fun in Acapulco shot because they didn't think Elvis looked, you know, 100% slim and healthy and what have you. I've said before, and I think we all agree, what a ridiculous state of affairs, but that isn't the reason that I've put them there. Okay, I mean, Paradise Hawaiian Style itself, great kick-off track. I think the strongest song, and it's the bonus song, but we're discounting that. Is it a terrible album? It's not a terrible album. This Is My Heaven's okay. Scratch My Back, scratch My Back, then I'll Scratch Yours is pretty weak. Stop Where You Are is pretty weak. Drums of the Island, not too bad. But Queenie Wahini's Papaya, Dating and A Dog's Life, they're just really weak fodder. It's an attempt to go back to the glory days of Blue Hawaii, but it's a pale imitation to my mind. Again, I think you've probably got at least half of the tracks that are just weak and don't stand up. Again, still some good tracks on here, but if I'm gonna rank them, I've got to rank them, and this is my number 22, Paradise Hawaiian Style. At number 21, Double Trouble. I thought long and hard about this one because Double Trouble nearly makes it, just for the fact it's got Old MacDonald on it, nearly automatically makes it the worst. But I think with some of the stronger material on here, it's stronger than the strongest material on the previous two. So, you know, Double Trouble again, the sort of signature track is pretty decent. Could I Fall in Love's a good track. Baby If You'll Give Me All Your Love, Long-Legged Girl, City by Night. I Love Only One Girl, and it's kind of umpire feel I'm not keen on. There Is So Much World to See, I don't think it's very strong. But Old MacDonald, I mean, I don't think anyone will ever forgive the filmmakers for deciding to get Elvis to sing Old MacDonald. I wonder what on earth he was thinking, you know. And also very, very short, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've only got 8 tracks. So really it's one where the strongest material on the album is the bonus tracks. But we're talking about the soundtracks. So coming in at number 21 for me, Double Trouble, 1967. Number 20, Kissing Cousins. The kind of one of the real indicators that the rock was starting in terms of the movie itself and the soundtrack as well. 1964. Kissing Cousins, the lead-off track, number 2 as they call it's okay. Smoky Mountain Boy, There's Gold in the Mountains, One Boy, Two Little Girls, Catching On Fast and Tender Feeling. Actually, side 1, not too bad. Barefoot Ballad, and the Kissing Cousins reprise with Elvis doing his sort of overdoing a sort of hillbilly accent because he's singing it as Jody. It's not a terrible album. It's not a terrible album by any means. I mean, really, you probably only got those two that I'd say were really weak. The rest of the soundtrack's actually not too bad, but I've got to rank them, and Kissing Cousins is coming in at number 20. At 19, Harem Scarum, or Harem Holiday as it was in the UK. Now, I've always had a real soft spot for this album because it was Eastern feel, but I think if you're trying to sort of sit back and dispassionately say, which soundtracks were better than others, it's got some poor material on it, really, hasn't it? My Desert Serenade, Shake That Tambourine, Hey Little Girl. They're not the strongest, and again, I can't include the bonus material because 2 of my favourite tracks, Animal Instinct and Wisdom of the Ages, are bonus songs, so I can't include them. As it was, it probably would have come a little bit higher. But having said that, it's got so closely as So Far From Paradise. Harem Holiday is not a bad track indeed. So, yeah, I'm going to say we have 1965 Harem Scarum Holiday coming in at number 19. Number 18, as I say, this would be a lot higher had you been able to include the bonus tracks, because you've got Guitar Man, Big Boss Man, Just Call Me Lonesome, Singing Tree, but we can't. We've got to go on what's on here. So, again, Clambake, the title track's not too bad, but I think Who Needs Money's weak. Confidence is very, very weak. Hey, 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 weak song, really, really ridiculous lyrics. You Don't Know Me's fantastic. The Girl I Never Love's fantastic. A House That Has Everything's fantastic, but there's some quite weak material in between. Certainly, Confidence and Hey, Hey, Hey. So I'm going to put 1968's Clambake in at number 18. Now, this might be a bit of a surprise. I'm not sure. So, number 17, I'm going for Love Me Tender. Now, it's only got the 4 tracks, and Love Me Tender is obviously a perennial evergreen classic, a staple of Elvis's material. From the moment it was released, it was up there. Love Me Tender is fantastic, but I think the other 3 tracks, Let Me, Poor Boy, and We're Gonna Move, aren't particularly strong. They're not particularly weak, but they're just a bit so-so for me. And I've always felt this way. Whenever, when I first got the 56 sessions on vinyl, the Love Me Tender tracks were ones I tended to skip a bit other than Love Me Tender itself. So, putting Elvis in 56 as low as 17 might be a little bit controversial, but I couldn't think of anywhere else to put it because I don't think it deserves to be higher. So, Love Me Tender. Number 16, 1968 again, Speedway. Now, again, you've got a really short 7 tracks, and one of those is Nancy Sinatra. So you've only got 6 tracks to look at from the movie itself. There Ain't Nothing Like a Song, the duet with Nancy Sinatra's okay. He's Your Uncle, Not Your Dad isn't particularly great at all. Let Yourself Go strong, Speedway strong. Who Are You, Who Am I? I've always had quite a soft spot for that. But, you know, I think if we're ranking, I just don't think this is strong as, you know, some of the stuff that I've got higher. Again, not a poor album, but also not a particularly golden, memorable album. It's good, but it's only just good, in my opinion. So Speedway. Now, this one may come as a surprise, I'm not sure. So at number 15, I'm putting Easy Come, Easy Go. Now, I don't know if it's the fact that most of these appeared on Camden's. And, you know, you might raise your eyebrow and say, well, you've put something with Yoga Is As Yoga Does higher than Speedway. How come? But I think, you know, let's face it, this being an EP, we only get 4 of the songs. We've not got things like The Love Machine. But I think Easy Come, Easy Go itself is a great track. I'll Take Love. I've always really liked I'll Take Love. It's a shame, you know, showing the EP, we don't get all the songs from the movie. But I think, you know, it's got a real sort of as the movie, it's got a real 60s feel to the soundtrack of Easy Come, Easy Go. And I personally prefer it to Speedway. So that might get some comments. I'm not sure, but I'm putting Easy Come, Easy Go from 1967 at number 15. So number 14, Spin Out, California Holiday. Again, a little bit like Easy Come, Easy Go, we've got a real sort of 60s feel. And I think really we end up with some pretty decent, it's a tricky one to call them rock songs, but they're, you know, they've got a propulsion to them. They're quite loud, you know. I mean, I remember first putting this on the turntable and, you know, Stop, Look and Listen, Adam and Evil. They came flying out the speakers at me. I think this is a really, really strong soundtrack, actually. If it came to the bonus songs, this would put it even higher. Look, we've got Tomorrow's a Long Time Down in the Alley and I'll Remember You. 3 fabulous bonus songs, but we can't count them. But we've got Adam and Evil, Stop, Look and Listen, All That I Am, Never Say Yes, Spin Out itself, I'll Be Back. Okay, Smorgasbord's a bit silly. Never Say Yes is okay. Beat Shack's quite daft, but really, I think it's got more percentage of strong songs than some of the ones that I've put lower. So we are going to go 1966, Spin Out, California Holiday at number 14. Number 13. And a lot of people I know are very fond of this album, myself included, Girl Happy. It's got its moments of weakness, but it's a fun album, it's a fun listen. It's just a great little soundtrack, I think. Girl Happy itself, obviously at the wrong speed, which is a strange, Elvis's vocals, which is a strange decision to make. The argument was that they wanted to make him sound more youthful and engaged or something along those lines. Spring Fever itself, Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, daft lyrics but still a nice little song. Starting Tonight, Wolf Call, Do Not Disturb, Cross My Heart, Hope to Die, The Meanest Girl in Town, Do the Clam, Put a Bit on a String, and I've Got to Find My Baby. A nice strong little album, I think. A good listen. So Girl Happy 1965 is coming in for me at number 13. At number 12, 1964, we have Roustabout. Always really loved this album as a kid, and I'm still really fond of it. I think it's a pretty decent, strong soundtrack. Roustabout, Little Egypt, Poison Ivy League, Hard Knocks, It's a Wonderful World, Big Love, Big Heartache, One Track Heart, It's Carnival Time, Carney Town, There's a Brand New Day on the Horizon, and Wheels on My Heels. If I was going to pick weaker tracks, I'd probably go with Carney Town and It's Carnival Time, maybe. But there's not many, Then there's not many. I think it's a pretty strong soundtrack, and the American public recognised that because this was a #1 album at the time, and Elvis's soundtracks weren't always scoring that high. So, yeah, and I think it's a great cover too. I really like this one. So, Roustabout comes in at number 12. And number 10, 1963, Fun in Acapulco. And actually, we have a run of three album soundtracks from 1963 all together here. So, Fun in Acapulco coming in at number 11. I always really like this album. I've always had a real sort of love of it. It's, I've said before, and many have said before, at least they were trying to sort of give the music a feel of the locations for the movies, and this has got a real Latino feel to a lot of the tracks. Are there any weakies? There's No Room to Rumble in a Sports Car is fairly silly, and The Bullfighter was a lady, but by and large, Vino Dinero y Amor, I think I'm going to like it here. Bossa Nova Baby, a strong single and a classic coming from a movie. You Can't Say No in Acapulco. Guadalajara, again from the Camdens, soft spot for that. Margarita, El Toro, and Fun in Acapulco itself. Yeah, a strong soundtrack. So coming in at number 11, Fun in Acapulco. So we're in our top 10 now. 63 as well. It Happened at the World's Fair. Another strong soundtrack, and some great tunes on here. Beyond the Bend, Relax, Take Me to the Fair, They Remind Me Too Much of You, One Broken Heart for Sale. Always adored that. Don't know why they put the shorter version. Should have put the version with the extra verse. It's not like it's long either way. I'm Falling in Love Tonight, Cotton Candy Land, A World of Our Own, How Would You Like to Be? Even though that was on a Camden, that one is fairly weak. But Happy Ending. 63 again, another really fine soundtrack. It Happened at the World's Fair. And sticking with 63 and going into... Did I say that was number... Yeah. So this must be number 9. Girls, Girls, Girls. At this time, the movies are still relatively strong and the soundtracks are still relatively strong with them. And we get a bona fide smash hit with Return to Sender. So I think this is definitely worth a place at number 9. Girls, Girls, Girls. I Don't Want to Be Tied. I think that's a forgotten gem. I always really loved I Don't Want to Be Tied. Where Do You Come From? I Don't Want To. We'll Be Together. A Boy Like Me, A Girl Like You. Earth Boy probably doesn't stand up too well in today's world, but Return to Sender, Because of Love, Thanks to the Rolling Sea, Song of the Shrimp, yeah, that's daft. The Walls Have Ears, it's fairly daft, but quite enjoyable, and We're Coming in Loaded. So, I think you've got 3 really strong soundtracks in a row. It's 1963. Elvis is in fine voice. He's still fully engaged with the material, and that comes across. So my number 9 is Girls, Girls, Girls. Number 8, Follow That Dream. Great songs. The kick-off track, Follow That Dream. Angel is beautiful. Sound of Ice is a bit daft, but still quite enjoyable. What a Wonderful Life, and I'm Not the Marrying Kind. A really, really strong soundtrack to a really strong movie. So 1962, Follow That Dream is coming in at number 8 for me. And also 1962, but I think with a slightly stronger soundtrack, is Kid Galahad. King of the Whole Wide World, This Is Living, Riding the Rainbow, Home Is Where the Heart Is, I Got Lucky, and A Whistling Tune. For me, everyone an absolute cracker. And again, most of them featured on the Camdens, so maybe that influences some of my decision making. But I think the Kid Galahad soundtrack material is really strong, and it's close between Kid Galahad and Follow That Dream for me, but I think Kid Galahad just edges it. I think I don't think there's a weak song on here, whereas Sound Advice on Follow That Dream is probably a little bit weaker. So I'm going to go Kid Galahad, number 7. Number 6, GI Blues. Elvis comes back from the army, full of hope and promise for resurrecting his career after being in the forces for 2 years. And the material on this is pretty strong. I think anyone would agree. Tonight's All Right, So Far Right for Love, What She Really Like, Frankfurt Special, Wooden Heart, GI Blues, Pocket Full of Rainbows is just gorgeous. Shopping Around, Big Boots, Did You Ever, Blue Suede Shoes, even the re-recorded, he goes in and re-records Blue Suede Shoes and still makes, I don't think it's as good as the original, but he still makes a pretty fine job of it. Doing the Best I Can, beautiful ballad. I played this to death when I was a kid. I think it's a really strong soundtrack and it holds up even now. So GI Blues 1960 is my number 6. So we're now into our top 5. And top 5, Blue Hawaii, number 5, 1961. Now, despite my misgivings about what the movie itself meant in terms of heralding a change in direction for the path that Elvis's films would take from there on, it's virtually impossible to deny what a strong soundtrack this is. Very, very Hawaiian flavoured for the majority of it. Where am I going to go weak? I mean, I've got a real soft spot for Moonlight Swim. So Blue Hawaii, Almost Always True, Aloha Oi, No More, Can't Help Falling in Love, classic that it is. Rockahula, classic that it is. Rockahula Baby, should I say. Moonlight Swim, Kupu Ipo, Ito Eats. That's your weak track on here for me. But Slicing Sand, Hawaiian Sunset, Beach Boy Blues, Island of Love, Hawaiian Wedding Song. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful music. Beautifully delivered with Elvis in fine voice. And yeah, a fantastic listen. So coming in at number 5 for me, Blue Hawaii from 1961. Now, number 4, for me, Viva Las Vegas. Very, very strong material. Should have been an album. Only got an EP release. But Viva Las Vegas, what I say, if you think I don't need you, I need somebody to lean on. Come on, everybody. Today, tomorrow, and forever. So actually, in some ways, being an EP, it probably manages to shed the weaker material like Yellow Rose of Texas and The Eyes of Texas. So it probably ends up a more coherent, strong release as a result of it. But I just think the music in Viva Las Vegas is utterly fantastic. The songs that weren't used are utterly fantastic, but we can't even consider those. So, but yeah, standalone. I've never made any secret of my love of the movie Viva Las Vegas. I think it's one of his strongest, and I think the soundtrack's one of his strongest too. Unfortunately, it doesn't make the top 3 because it's not as strong, in my opinion, as the top 3 are, but it's certainly darn close. Viva Las Vegas, 1964, number 4. Now, we end up with our top 3, and anyone that was watching this channel is almost certainly an Elvis fan, and if you're almost certainly an Elvis fan, you almost certainly can work out what we've got left, and they're all 1950s. And in some ways that might seem quite a lazy, obvious choice, I guess. But I think the fact remains that those movies from the 50s not only were the strongest movies, but they had the strongest material, because at that stage, you know, that there wasn't this sense of, oh, just get somebody in, you know, come up with this plot, got these scenarios, we need to get some writers to write something. You know, they were still top flight songwriters writing material for Elvis, and it was finding its way into the movies, but there was no sense of you know, sloppiness or laziness. The material was just top flight, so it's hard really not to end up with these three in the top three. I guess it just comes down really to what order you're going to put them in, and I'm going to put number 3 as Loving You. You know, Loving You is full of great material. The title song, Mean Woman Blues, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, Got a Lot of Living to Do, Lonesome Cowboy, Hot Dog Party, just phenomenal. You know, Rebel Elvis at his peak. You know, this, if ever, you know, the film tries to sort of mirror Elvis's life, and he plays that role with ease because that's the life he's living. You know, he's almost there with a film camera in front of him, just being everything that he was being while he was not in front of a film camera. So it's just glorious. The soundtrack to Loving You is fantastic, and that is my number 3, Loving You, 1957. Top 2 were difficult, but I'm going to go number 2, Jailhouse Rock. Jailhouse Rock, you know, the material in Jailhouse Rock is utterly brilliant. Jailhouse Rock, Young and Beautiful, Don't Leave Me Now, You're So Square, Baby I Don't Care, I Want to Be Free. Yeah, again, you know, great songwriters writing great material for Elvis at his absolute peak of the 1950s. 1957, Jailhouse Rock, utterly brilliant. Just, you know, the vocals in Jailhouse Rock, the propulsion that the bass has, the propulsion of the bass in You're So Square, Baby I Don't Care, which by all accounts Elvis played himself because Bill Black couldn't get the hang of the electric bass. Genius, utter genius. Film and soundtrack, but no, we're not talking. We're not rating the films. We're rating the music in them. But number 2 for me, Jailhouse Rock, and that obviously only leaves us at number 1 with the magnificent King Creole. Now, why have I put this at number 1? There's something very innovative and imaginative and brave about this release, because it somehow manages to fuse Elvis at his absolute 1950s peak. He's on brilliant vocal form, but then because the movie's set in New Orleans, they take the bold move to kind of fuse rock and roll with Dixieland jazz, if you like, and somehow those meeting of those two fairly disparate styles results in a brave, bold, and utterly successful album. You've got Dixieland rock, you've got New Orleans, trouble, you know, that sound of Dixieland, and you know, all the trumpets, just the feel of that Dixieland roll fusing with rock and roll to utter perfection. The results are incredible. This is a genius work of art. And then we take into things like King Creole, As Long As I Have You, Hard-Headed Woman, Don't Ask Me Why, Love a Doll, Crawfish. You know, Crawfish, the way it opens and the core response with Elvis, and I struggle to find enough superlatives for how good I think this is. Probably the only weak track is Steadfast, Loyal and True. You know, the Dear Alma Mater is probably not the strongest, but you know, who cares when everything else is that strong? one track that might be slightly weaker really doesn't matter at all, does it? This is superb. And this for me is, you know, from the moment I heard it, it was my favourite soundtrack album. And where are we, 51 years later or whatever, it remains my favourite soundtrack album. This is brilliant. We've seen a lot of brilliance, but this kind of takes it up an even higher gear. I love King Creole. I think it's mind blowing. So there we go. There is my top 23. King Creole winning out. Jailhouse Rock a close second. And unfortunately at the bottom of the pile, Frankie and Johnny and Paradise of Wine Style. So, right, I would love to know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know, if not your top 23 in order, if you can't be bothered to type that much, just let me know what your favourites are. Let me know what your least favourites are. Is there anything I've said that you really disagree with and think, no, that should be way higher or even lower than I put it? Just let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I thought that would be an interesting exercise. I did switch a few around. It's funny when you actually sit there and you want to go through it and think, should that be there or should that be there? It really does sort of crystallise your thinking on what you'd never put any lower and what you think, yeah, actually, probably that one is a bit better. So yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a little bit of a departure from the usual that I usually do, I guess, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed watching it. So thanks as ever for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hope you can join me next week for Sunday's episode. But until then, have a great week, everyone. Look after yourselves. Ta-da.
We'll meet you again. May God bless you. Adios.